Hello friends, I'm Sarah Liz Taroska, and today we're going to talk about how to get the most out of your 6x6 backgrounds, specifically if you're using a Turnabout stamp. Now normally for a Turnabout you start with a 6x6 inch square piece of paper or something smaller that you put on a 6x6 jig. I wanted to get 2 full mini slimline cards out of it. So I'm starting with a 7x7, and this is just a piece of copy paper, and I'm marking the center by connecting each of the corners. I suppose I could have used a ruler, but it really didn't occur to me at the time. So now I'm taking out the template that comes with my Turnabout stamp. This is the Concord and 9th Coffee Blends Turnabout, and I'm just lining up those images right over top of the template. There's an X on that template that I'm going to line up with my 7x7 inch piece of paper. Then I'm going to pick that up with the door of my MISTI and remove the template. Next, I'm bringing in a piece of craft cardstock so I can start my stamping. Anytime I'm using a Turnabout and I want to emboss a layer or a couple of layers, I always start with those. So I'm not trying to compete with other inks that may still be drying. I'm just really impatient. So quite frankly, I don't have it in me to heat set something or worry about it warping. Here I am adding Hero Arts White Satin Pearl embossing powder, and I love how this makes the cardstock a little bit darker, but it also adds a nice sort of pearly shine to it. I'm heat setting that with my heat tool, and then I will rotate it and add it back to my MISTI so we can continue stamping. For this background, I am only heat embossing one layer of my background. For this second turn, I am using a light brown ink, and I'm pressing that firmly with my pressure tool. I did have to stamp each of these layers a couple of times to make sure that they came through clearly. So I'm going to turn this one more time and add a dark brown layer of ink. Normally with a Turnabout stamp, I would do 4 turns, right? And then I would get a completely filled in background. But since I want to extend the background, I'm only doing 3 this time. What that does is it leaves some gaps in the background where I can fill in with some of the other smaller stamp sets or stamp images in this set. So there are a couple of coffee cups, a takeout cup, and a little cup on a saucer. There's a heart, some coffee beans, and the word coffee. So I'm going to add those to my background. And every time I add an image, I am going to press really firmly and wait just a second before I bring my stamp up. Okay. I have a couple of tricks I use to make sure that I am going to get a clear image, and that's the first one. I've also taken out the mouse pad from my MISTI, and I have that sitting underneath my background since this is a photopolymer stamp. It just helps to give it that little extra sort of wiggle room to keep that nice and crisp. And then the other thing I'm doing, and this is probably the most important, is that I am using VersaFine Clair Pinecone ink. It's a pigment ink, and that pigment ink, I don't know what it is about it. I just get a better image the first time than I do with any dye ink I have ever used. I could have put this back in my MISTI, right? I could have lined up every image every time on my MISTI door and stamped it that way to make sure that I could restamp it, but it would have taken a really long time. So for me, this ink is the key to making this work. Because this is a Turnabout, the other thing I really wanted to make sure I did was to turn my image every time that I'm adding one. Okay, because the Turnabout turns every time you're adding a set of images, it means that the pieces I'm adding in will blend in a little better. They won't look like I just tacked them on after I had finished this other background. Because I only did 3 layers of my original Turnabout, it also means that there are some holes in the middle where I can fill in, and you won't feel like these new images only exist around the perimeter. I picked this particular Turnabout because it came with extra images. So I didn't have to worry about trying to stamp a piece of that center Turnabout image or anything like that. But there are ways around that. If you have a Turnabout that is just the one large image, you could cut the Turnabout. I know you're going to freak out, but I've done it. And I found that I made kind of a right angle or something close. By the way, here I just cut a quick frame to kind of see what my 6x6 image would look like. And I'm identifying some of those small gaps that are still around the perimeter. But I found if I was cutting my Turnabout, if I created a fairly sharp angle, a right angle, something like that, it was really easy to piece it back together. You get that template that comes with it, and it makes sure that every image is in the right place, and then you just pick it up with your Misty Door and it's a piece of cake. I also like this Turnabout for this technique because the Turnabout itself mostly contains standalone images, right? There's an I Heart Coffee where the heart is in a different color, but everything else stands by itself, and you don't have to worry about it looking like you didn't finish an image if you only do 3 turns. So here I have a piece of 11" by 3¼ cardstock, and I'm scoring it at 6¼ This is going to be my card base. And I got this card design from Call Me Crafty Owl with her Sheetload of cards, and I just crack up every time I say that. And I love the template that she came up with for this one. Next, I am just trimming down my background to 6x6". This is 6¼ right now, and honestly, it's pretty full. I could have left this a little bit bigger, or I could have stamped all the way to the outside edge, overlapped a little bit off the outside edge, and gotten a 7x7, right? But for this card, I wanted 6x6, and then I'm going to cut it in half, and I am left with a piece that is 6" by 3". Okay, so I am going to cut this piece so I have 2 pieces to adhere to my card. The first one is 4½ by 3". That's the larger piece, and you'll see it sort of fits right into that smaller piece, which is now 3" by 1½ And I'm going to flip it over. So right on that inside edge, I'm going to cut off another 1/8 inch. I want there to be a brown border that is sort of even all the way around the card, but I want the background to feel continuous. So I cut out the piece of the background that's right where that dark brown strip is between them. Now I'm going to adhere this to my card base. On the left, that larger piece, right, doesn't go all the way across the card. That is just sort of a long flap for the card, right? It's a little bit of a fun fold. So I'm adhering that, and then I'm going to adhere this smaller piece, and I'm going to butt it right up against where the flap ends. I'm giving it a smidge of room so it doesn't catch on there when we go to open and close the card, right? But then the images feel continuous, and I have sort of an interesting fold to play with. On the inside of the card, I'm going to add a piece of white cardstock that measures the same as the larger piece of our background. So it is 4½ by 3". Later on, I'm going to come back to this inside of the card and add a couple coffee beans, that sort of triple coffee bean stamp right to the corner. I thought that'd be cute. I wanted something else to put right where the card pieces meet to add a little more interest, and there's this really large coffee cup stamp that comes with the Turnabout. And so here I am inking it up with that Pinecone ink again. You can see this is my second one. The first one, it was off just slightly, and I wanted it nice and dark. Even with the Pinecone, I had to stamp it a couple of times. So I'm making sure my cardstock is all the way on the corner, and I'm pressing it firmly with my stamp tool. And then I'm going to add some clear embossing powder over that to give it a nice bit of shine. And this is what I love in editing, this sort of magic of the heat gun going faster than humanly possible, and everything gets so pretty. But I loved this. I thought the coffee cup image was just a lot of fun. There's also this little inner stamp where you can add the coffee into the cup, and it's got a nice little heart detail. So I added that onto my coffee cup. I love that it left this like little sort of shine ring around the outside. Now don't freak out. I fussy cut this coffee cup to add to my card, but you don't have to, right? There is a die set that goes with this. I didn't know that, so I don't have it. I checked it out. The die for this coffee cup even cuts out, I think, the inside of the handle, which would have been awesome. I thought about doing it with my fussy cut scissors. I just don't have it in me. I didn't want to mess it up. Okay, so now I'm adhering the coffee cup onto just the large flap, right? I don't want to glue my card closed with some 1mm foam tape. So it's like a thin foam tape, right? And it gives me just a little something extra on the outside of my card. And then I thought, what the heck? Let's go ahead and stamp a matching envelope. So thanks a latte. And then I put a little tiny coffee cup right in the corner. And this was just an awful lot of fun. I was able to make 2 of these awesome cards out of my one 6x6 extended turnabout background. If you liked it too, leave a comment down below, maybe subscribe, give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it.